It seems like it's raining cameras these days. First Canon, then Blackmagic, then Sony, and now the latest player in the game, the Panasonic LUMIX S5. Hey everyone, Kunal Singh here. And yes, as I said in my last video, the time for the giveaway is almost here. It's coming this Wednesday, so make sure that you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss it out. And also hit that like button. That will be much appreciated. And now let's talk about the Panasonic LUMIX S5 and how well it holds up against the likes of the Sony a7 III. On papers, the LUMIX S5 looks like a serious contender for the perfect hybrid camera that doesn't break the bank. This one sits right below the LUMIX S1, which is priced at about $2,500 and is a great camera in my opinion. With the LUMIX S5, Panasonic aims to appeal to both photographers and videographers with new creative photo modes and impressive video features. The S5 features a 24 megapixel full-frame CMOS sensor which is same as the S1 and has ISO range from 100 to 51200. Ergonomically, the S5 is a lot more compact than the S1 and the S1 Edge and lacks the top plate LCD, but it does have an articulating screen along with 5 GHz Wi-Fi, Bluetooth and microphone and headphone jacks. It has dual card slots and storage duties are handled by regular SD cards, of which only one slot is UHS 2 compatible, which is fine really because the file sizes on the S5 is not too crazy and decent SD cards can handle all that data without any problem. If you are a fan of autofocus for video, you'd be pretty disappointed by the autofocus performance. Panasonic is still using contrast-based autofocus for its cameras, whereas almost all its competitors have shifted to phase detect autofocus. Though the autofocus works quite good for photos, for videos, it will almost never keep your subject in focus if either the camera or the subject is moving, something that Sony cameras excel at. It also has in-body stabilization, which can come handy when you're shooting handheld. The LUMIX S5 uses Leica's L mount for its lenses, and over the years the number of L series lenses have increased, and Sigma also makes some amazing mirrorless L mount lenses now, so you don't have to worry about some decent glass. Now let's talk about the video performance of this camera. I think the highlight of the S5 is the ability to shoot 422 10-bit videos at 4K, Full HD and even in the anamorphic mode. Panasonic already had 10-bit with a lot of cameras before. The GH5 did it, the GH5S did it as well, and the new S series cameras also have 10-bit 422 recording modes. But the reason it's worth mentioning is that at the same price point, the Sony a7 III cannot do that. It's an 8-bit camera, and that means if you want greater flexibility in post-production, you aren't getting that with the a7 III. The Canon R6 can deliver 10-bit 422, but it's an H.265 compression and it's also $500 more expensive than the LUMIX S5. The S5, being a 10-bit camera, has more color details in its pixels, and Panasonic is advertising 14 plus stops of dynamic range. But I believe in real world scenarios it's gonna be around 12, maybe 13 stops. And it also supports company's XLR adapter, so if you need to capture high quality audio on set, you can do that. Now, the recording modes are not anything outrageous. You get 4K at 10-bit 422 for up to 30 FPS at 150 megabits per second. If you wish to shoot 4K at 60 frames, then you get the good old 8-bit 420. Although if you wish, you can shoot 4K at 60 frames in 10-bit, but then you have to switch to H.265 compression, and even then the chroma subsampling is not at 422, it's at 420. So that's something to keep in mind. And it's good to have that option in case you ever need it. You can also record 10-bit 422 in 4K anamorphic up to 30 frames per second and Full HD at up to 60 frames per second at 100 megabits per second. For slow motion requirements, you get up to 180 frames per second in Full HD, whereas the Sony a7 III maxes out at 120 frames per second. The LUMIX S5 also has dual native ISOs, which are 640 and 4000. This helps greatly when you're shooting in low light and gives you much less noise. The Panasonic GH5S also had dual native ISOs, and it was a beast when it came to low light shooting, even though it had a smaller sensor. You do get some recording time limits, but nothing too serious. The only complaint I have with the LUMIX S5 is that you get an APS-C crop on the sensor in 4K 60 frames mode. Apart from that, I really like this camera and it has almost all the features I need when I go for a shoot. But if you compare the Panasonic to the a7 III purely on the basis of video specs, the LUMIX S5 blows the a7 III out of the water. Even if you take the 10-bit out of the equation for a second, the Panasonic gives you better slow motion, 60 frames in 4K, inbuilt anamorphic mode and dual native ISO. But the Sony beats it in autofocus capabilities. For me, it's not a big deal because in most of my videos I'm pulling focus manually anyway, but having a good autofocus system is not a novelty, but a necessity in today's time. Panasonic also announced that it will add more functionality to the S5 with a firmware update like Cinema 4K mode and raw video output among others. With all that said, the S5 puts out beautiful videos and it's a great pick if you're looking for a camera at that price range. You can pick up some decent lenses from Panasonic, Sigma or Leica and get to shooting amazing videos. And that's it for this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to the channel. Till next one, take care.